Aloha, my loves, and welcome back to Soulful Wahine. I hope you folks have been doing all right these past few weeks. If I'm being completely honest, I kind of needed a little break. I recently started a new job, and so there's been a lot of new life changes, and so I wanted to just get things situated before I hopped back into dropping new episodes. So, thank you so much for tuning in today. I wanted to start today's episode off by saying, how the hell has it already been 1 year since I dropped the first episode of Soulful Wahine? When I sit back and think about how it's been a year, it genuinely doesn't feel real to me. I still remember recording my first episode, still remember how nervous I was, and oh my gosh, I remember how many times I said like my first few videos, I was so anxious. I made these slides and I still continue to do so. But when I reflect back, when I look back at those first few episodes, like I truly had no idea what the hell I was doing. And somehow, a whole year later, I'm still here. You're still here. And I've been slowly but surely building a community, and it's honestly been one of the best things that's ever happened to me. I think one thing that was extremely interesting for me was how personal this podcast became for me. When I first was in the thinking stage, or like the building phase of creating Soulful Wahine, it truly was, meant to center around education, because I truly believe that knowledge is power. And the more knowledge we have, the more we can understand things about ourselves. And the more we understand things, the more we can make changes if we want to. And it's funny because in my head, I told myself, like, oh my gosh, my podcast is going to be so cute and quirky, and it's going to be all these things. And while I still think it is cute and quirky, this podcast has truly caused me to reflect on my own healing, my own triggers, my own toxic patterns, how I show up in relationships, and excuse me, and where I can improve. And I'm gonna be real, folks. Sometimes holding a mirror up to our own shit is really hard. And on this podcast, I have talked about things such as womanhood, loneliness, visibility, burnout, culture, and confidence, and what it means to actually find my voice outside of professional therapist keholani mode. Does that make sense? And honestly, I think that that's why so many of the conversations ended up feeling so real and ended up being so real, is because none of that was coming from a place of, I have it all figured out. No. It was more so coming from a place of, I'm in the same boat with you folks, and I'm learning these things in real time too. I'm learning how to apply them in my life the same way I am trying to teach you folks. And honestly, I feel like people can feel the difference in that. And I think that's why I've been able to build the beautiful community that I've built with Soulful Wahine. Because you guys have been able to recognize that while, yes, I bring in the educational content, if you've been here for a while, you know I can be a crybaby in some of my episodes. And that was even a big part of my healing journey. Being visible and being okay with being vulnerable in the public eye. One thing that this year has taught me is that growth does not always immediately feel good. Growth pushes us out of our comfort zone, and so it's going to feel awkward. It's going to feel lonely. It's going to feel uncomfortable. And honestly, it's going to be emotionally inconvenient. But that's the whole point. Healing usually requires us to stop operating in ways that once helped us to survive. And I'm going to be honest, folks, that is hard. Recognizing that we can no longer follow certain paths anymore, or we can no longer be doing certain things anymore if we want to heal. I don't know about you guys, but change isn't always something that I look forward to. So, again, just acknowledging that this can be hard. Another thing is, I also feel like people underestimate how exhausting it can be to be extremely self-aware. Because the thing is, folks, once you become aware of your patterns, you can't unsee them anymore. And suddenly you're recognizing why certain relationships drain you. You're starting to recognize why you were overextending yourself, why rest feels uncomfortable for you, or why you even struggle to say no. And honestly, there's a point in your healing journey where it's almost that you become so aware of your patterns that damn near everything irritates you. And if that is in your journey, or if you are in that part of your journey right now, that's okay. That's a part of the healing process. It's not meant to look pretty and cute. I want to say something to my women. I genuinely feel like a lot of women are one inconvenience away from crashing the fuck out. And I'm not even trying to be funny. I'm not even trying to be dramatic. It is just something that I see in my personal and my professional life. And I just feel like nowadays, women are exhausted in a way that I feel like sometimes people aren't always fully taking serious, you know? And I say this because in our society, when it comes to women, women have so many expectations placed on us. We're expected to work, nurture, heal, protect, communicate perfectly, regulate our emotions and everyone else's emotions, support everybody else's goals, still look good while doing all of this, be ambitious, be emotionally intelligent, and somehow not lose yourself or lose ourselves in the process of all of this. And I'm going to be honest, folks, that's actually a ridiculous amount of pressure when you really stop and think about it. Another thing is that I feel like a lot of women have become so used to living in survival mode that they don't even realize how disconnected they are from themselves anymore. And recognize I said disconnected from themselves, not others. In a lot of my work, folks, I work with women who they don't really know what rest feels like, or what it means to not have to earn rest, or what it means to just experience softness. And it's at no fault of their own, but rather it's because their nervous system has been stuck in, the keep going mode for years. I want to kind of switch now because one thing that I learned from doing this whole podcast, guys, is how weird it feels to be perceived online. Like, I kind of struggle with posting consistently on both like my TikTok and my Instagram page because I don't know, sometimes I just get so in my head of like, okay, how do I look? Do I make sense? Like, is my volume okay? And what I like, is the topic that I'm touching on, is it even relevant to what people want to hear? Fuck, sorry guys, I don't know why I'm burping so much. But one thing I struggled with was the second that you put yourself out there, folks, people start making opinions on you. And I struggle with that But I had to recognize, like, no, if I'm going to be putting this type of content out, if I'm going to be trying to educate my community and to help my community, I don't know. I have to be okay with the idea that I am going to be, is it misperceived? I don't know. Um that I might not always be perceived the way I want to be. And as much as that sucks, it's also okay. In the beginning, I tried so hard to sound polished and put together and perfect because I don't know, when I listen to other podcasts, like I just feel like they know what the hell they're doing and how they talk and how they communicate. And so I felt this like burning need to show up perfectly, to show up being emotionally put together all the time. And I truly felt like inner pressure to show up and almost sound like the perfect therapist, if that makes sense. But honestly, I realized, guys, that the more I actually relaxed into my real personality and I allowed the true Keholani to come out and show herself at times, everything became so much better. Everything became so much easier. And I feel like my connections that I've been making with you folks, they've been able to be deeper because I've been showing up authentically as myself. And it's because I realized that people don't want to connect to perfection. They want to connect to someone who feels warm. They want to connect to someone who's honest, who has personality and humor. And while I recognize that my personality, my humor, and the way I present myself might not always be for everyone, that's also okay. Because I've had to learn that I am not everyone's cup of tea. I am not going to align with every single person who comes across my content, who comes across my page. And I don't know, that's okay. And so this podcast truly helped me realize that I don't have to sound robotic. I don't have to I don't have to sound perfect or polished or put together. I just got to show up as me and share my knowledge, share my wisdom. That's it. One thing that I truly loved about doing this podcast, folks, is realizing that I can be two things at once. I can be emotionally intelligent and hilarious. I can be soft and opinionated. I can be culturally grounded and clinically informed. And I can be professional and still sound like an actual human being. Again, one does not have to negate the other. And weirdly enough, once I made this connection, once I realized this, I started to trust my own voice. And it truly changed everything. Ooh, I haven't really touched on this just because, I don't know, I feel like I'll ruffle some fucking feathers if I really do. But I had to finally admit to myself that moving away from Maui and leaving Hawaii had really, really impacted me more than I wanted to admit. Because the thing is when you grow up surrounded by people who not only look like you, but understand your humor, understand your culture, understand certain unspoken things, you don't really realize how much emotional safety exists in that until you're no longer a part of it or until you leave it. And moving away from Maui helped me to realize just how connected culture and mental health are actually connected. And that wasn't even just clinically, like, that was genuinely in everyday life. Meaning, I don't know, I I didn't realize how much things like feeling understood, feeling connected, feeling emotionally safe, I didn't realize how big of a deal those things were or how much those things matter, again, until I came here. And honestly, I think for me, guys, Soulful Wahine became a space where I stopped feeling like I had to separate different parts of myself. You know? Like, I didn't have to choose between being a Polynesian woman, being a Black woman, being a therapist, being emotional, being feminine, being thoughtful. Like, this is my space. Ooh, sorry, I just shook. Oh, she's shaking the table. You're a real one if you know where that reference is from. Um, but with this being my space that I created, it has allowed me to recognize that I can show up however the fuck I want. And when I show up authentically like me, when I show up authentically Kehalani, that is when I'm the most successful, truly. And one of the biggest things that this podcast has helped me to realize is that people actually crave real, deep conversations. Not that overly curated self care bullshit, but actual conversations, talking about patterns, talking about why we do things, you know, and it helps people to realize, like, wow, I'm not the only one who feels this way, or I'm not the only one who has gone through something like this. As Soulful Wahine moves into year 2, I honestly want this space to just keep feeling real. I I don't want it to be polished. I don't want it to be performative. Like, I want this space to remain authentically mine, and I want it to remain honest. I want women and I want my audience to be able to come here and feel understood, comforted, challenged, even, and emotionally safe, and recognize that you are not alone in any of this, and that I see you and you are always welcome. One thing I want to be honest about, folks, is I feel like I'm still growing into my voice. You know, like I said, I still use my slides and all that, but I don't know. I feel like I'm still growing my confidence. And I think that's what makes Soulful Wahine so exciting for me, is just I can't wait to continue to see how much she grows and how much I grow. And I just don't want this to be disconnected from me in my real life. You know, like, I want her to grow with me and I want her to grow with us, because I feel like that is going to be what makes year 2 so much better. Before I end today's episode, I genuinely just want to say mahalo to everybody who has listened, who has supported this space, who has sent me messages, reached out, or even just simply sat with these conversations when you need them the most. You folks truly have no idea how much you mean to me and how grateful I am to have your support. And I wouldn't be here without any of you. So thank you so much for just tuning in and for being a part of this community with me. Creating Soulful Wahine has genuinely become one of the most rewarding and meaningful things that I have ever done in my life. Not because it's perfect, but because it's real. Like I've said, I've cried on this damn podcast more than I want to admit. And as much as sometimes I want to cringe at that, no. You know, it's a part of my healing journey. It's a part of the work that I'm doing. And if I want to continue to show up genuinely, authentically me, I have to continue to honor these emotions as they come up. So again, thank you so much for being here for year 1. And I can't wait to see what year 2 has in store for all of us. As always, mahalo and aloha.